Try to imagine what this country would be like without automobiles.
The innermost layer of the eyeball is the retina, a very delicate membrane. The retina is actually a part of the optic nerve which transmits the light impulses to our brain.
To adjust the tint control for natural face tones, press the right rocker bar.
You can tell they're creating things that people are actually going to use.
Yeah. No, when I was near the end of the 3 o'clock, we rehearsed in Vernon, and right near Farmer John, and it was disgusting. Right. And it was like this 3 or 4 story building.
Yeah.
And there was an earthquake, and it was just stairs. Yeah. So we couldn't stay there. So like I think we were on the 3rd floor, and some of the stairs were like half stairs. So it was like we had to go to the police station and sign off, and it was pretty close to here. Yeah. Sign off like it's up to you. If you die, it's your problem. And there were like half stairs, and I had touring cases, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen him in a million years, but Billy Persons played with the Gun Club for 2 minutes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. We tried to get him to be in the band permanently, but he didn't want to tour or something. I don't know what it was, but
no, his experience. I mean, I talk to him not every day or anything. Yeah. I talk to him at least every year.
Yeah, we love Billy,
and he had nothing negative to say. I don't even know why he didn't do it. I can't remember.
I don't remember either. I mean, that's when Patricia came in right after that, and I didn't think Patricia was going to join.
Right.
I thought, no, she'll never do that. But Patricia kind of has a backbone to her, and she's like, well, bring it on. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and Billy was a good bass player, and he looked like Eddie Cochran. Both those people had a very good looks.
I know, it was great.
No loss on either case there.
Yeah, we'll take you, Billy. Come on.
Yeah,
but
no,
I don't know. It might have been that he, like everyone else on the planet, just couldn't really get along with Jeff.
Yeah, anyway. I actually don't recall him. Telling the truth, I don't ever recall him saying like something negative. It was sort of like he'll say, "Oh yeah, I was in the band for a brief period," but there's never like, "Oh, but they were a bunch of assholes." It never is like a follow up where he ever had anything negative to say.
I don't know why, because we were such assholes. I don't get it. No, Billy was just a nice guy, Yeah,
Billy's great.
Yeah,
Billy's great.
But anyway, so Danny.
Yes,
Danny Benair. Now, I can tell you, but I want you to tell me.
Yes.
So early on, let's say, when did you start playing for a band?
Drums?
Yeah.
Oh, when I was 12.
Okay, so you were, me too.
way before I was ever in a band.
But the first band.
Oh, the first band was the Quick.
Oh, so it was the Quick.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Quick and the years.
Are we recording?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Well, I mean, I lived in the San Fernando Valley, deep in the San Fernando Valley, in Panorama City, and I would say that I probably wear a very honorable badge of being a professional garage musician. My parents' garage, I think every band I was ever in at least played in it once. Right. And so I started out with Steve Hofstetter, who I went to junior and high school with. And, at some point, we weren't the Quick, but at some point, Steve and I started getting better. And we had jammed with various players. And Steve started working on arrangements of cover songs. And then he just started kind of randomly bringing in ideas, which at that point, they were still far from being the Quick.
Right.
But I think what started it for real was we placed an ad in, maybe it was the Recycler, which... Modern day, nobody knows, but everybody found musicians in the Recycler, and probably a good, Schwinn bicycle.
Yes, we did.
And
a washing machine,
and probably anything, a bride maybe. And we placed an ad, and Ian Ainsworth, who became our bass player, answered the ad, maybe one, and his name was Ian Ainsworth. So I was a typical stupid Anglophile. And I was like, his name is Ian Ainsworth. And so instantly I thought he was going to be great. And it turns out he was great. He was great, he sounded like he was in the move. He had this bass sound that was thundering. And so then we started slowly going through the trials and tribulations of like, are we serious about this? We're teenagers. What are we doing? You know?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of how it started.
Right.
And then Steve started writing songs, and we went through a singer and a series of keyboard players. I mean, at one point, even Leonard plays on our very, very, very first demo from the Dickies. Because when we knew Leonard in school, he was like a prog rock keyboard player.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, he had like harpsichords and Hammond organs. And I mean, it was amazing. But for some reason, I think one time, very early on, Steve and I had some friction. And Leonard was like, I can't be involved in this. But to this day, he's in a band with Stan Lee, which is the funniest thing in the world. And he's a punk rock singer. So who knew? So, eventually it took a couple years. And I think we played one gig at, it's on Oxnard in the Valley. Rock Corporation.
Rock Corporation, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have Super 8 film of it, which is enough just to say I did something. And then we found Danny Wild, who we went to high school with. Mm-hmm. And he had a band with Chuck and Carlos from the Dickies. Uh-huh. And he was kind of Bowie and Mick Ronson.
Sure. Yeah,
and Carlos had a flashlight, and we saw them play. They were called Kicks with a Y. And I think they played up against the guys who went into Toto at a high school thing. And of course, they got their ass kicked. Yeah. But that was how we kind of started. Steve asked Danny to join the band, and it kind of moved everything.
So when the original songs were starting to be written, were you guys aware or trying to create anything, like a presentation, like a concept? And I don't mean that in a grandiose way. I just mean, this is how we want to do it. This is how we want to be perceived.
I think at the first, no. I think at first there was no scene. I always claim that. I mean, if you lived in L.A., you went to the Sugar Shack if you were under 21, which I could go. But Kim Fowley was there, who was 35. I don't know.
Well, of course
but
he was
I
there.
think he found Cherie Curry there, and Rodney's English Disco just existed, and the Rainbow. But there was a period where the Whiskey stopped being a functioning
Went
place.
dark. Yeah,
and that was an amazing club, to go see everybody. And so I think at first we just tried to get, we had a version of the band that didn't last, and then we got Danny, and only a couple songs survived. Steve had a whole set of songs.
Yeah,
we basically threw about 85% of them, maybe 3 or 4 survived to when we got Danny in the band. And then I think Steve started talking about concepts like, we had the song Heaven and Hell, and we'll have a chair, and you'll sit in it backwards like Marlene Dietrich.
Right.
We'll have one light coming down. Yeah. I mean, way too showy for like just 5 kids in the Valley trying to be something. We had a song called Don't You Want It, which was about consumerism, and we had a shopping cart filled with, cereal boxes. Yeah. But we got rid of a lot of that fairly quickly. Yeah. I mean, we did it, and then we just, we just we were loud after that. We just a loud band.
I mean, I remember when the Whiskey, so it was dark like for a few months, right? And then it came back.
And we opened it, actually, November 76.
That's what I was wondering, because I couldn't remember. I thought, in my head, I was just like, that you guys opened that.
We played like a 4-day stint in November 76. I think like right around Thanksgiving. Yeah. And that was fun. Yeah. And we got to play with Venus and the Razor Blades. Valley was trying to hype them, and we shared a rehearsal room with them. And
wow. Yeah. Those were good shows. I wasn't here yet. I mean, I was literally like a month later.
Where did you live?
I moved here from Texas.
Texas, okay.
So, yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah. It's big, yeah. A lot of people have been there. A lot of people have driven through.
I've driven through and
yeah. Well,
combination.
But I mean, to me, it was like the first show I ever went was Blondie at the Whiskey.
Yeah,
that was January '77.
Yeah,
that was pretty close.
Yep.
And I just thought, the Whiskey, and then I think again had the memory, but I tell you guys, the Quick. Who did you play with at the Starwood?
Well, we had a few really big shows that we got. Yeah, we played with the Ramones. We played with the Ramones, and we played with them in Huntington Beach. But how we really got lucky. Michelle Myers, who's passed away in the '80s, sadly, really liked the band, and what happened was the Damned were coming to America, and they were going to open for Television at the Whiskey.
Yeah.
And Television said no way, so the Damned went to the Starwood. So we got the Damned and Television gig literally back to back. So we played with both of those bands.
So you opened. I saw the show. I was at the Starwood.
Yeah.
For the Damned. So you opened. That's what it was then.
Yeah.
That's what
And
it
Damned
was.
were great.
Yeah.
They were friendly. We
Right.
became friends with them, and Television were so mean.
Really?
It might have been we had. I brought a camera that weekend to the Whiskey, and I actually have this whole series of photos. I took a photo that a lot of people have taken and put it on their pages because it's the audience. It's like Kid Congo and Gary Stewart.
Yeah.
I mean, the audience is just. I sat on my drums. I took a photo, and then later on, somehow somebody got it, and it's a lot of people that went on to be in the music scene, and but there's a photo of me waving, and you can see Television playing behind us, and they were just so mean. Like they were gloomy in New Yorkers and long coats. And then the last night, Richard Lloyd walked down to our dressing room and apologized for their behavior. And we'd been very giddy. We were doing like these in the hallway. We were doing like those sort of like Roxy music with all guitar poses, and we were just taking all these crazy photos. So they just thought like, these guys are stupid, they're jerks, but they wanted nothing to do with us. But the Damned was the opposite. Like, you know, Rat Scabies was pouring water on his drums. He was like, do this, and setting his cymbals on fire. And it was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. You know?
No, the Damned, they loved fun.
Yeah.
They knew what it was. They
loved fun. They loved any disease they could get a hold of. I mean, they were fairly busy guys.
They had no problem with that.
No.
Yeah. Well, and that always struck me. It's kind of what, you know, I just had talked about before. So, you know, London and the sort of fake revolution thing. And then, but New York always seemed to be kind of older and
what's that?
A little more dour. The New York scene at the time.
Yeah, well, Blondie weren't, and we in the early days of Blondie, we did hang out with them at their hotel, and they were genuinely warm and sweet. And then later on, it wasn't like they weren't warm or sweet; they were just huge.
Yeah,
you know, I would still see Clem, and he would always say hi to me because we were drummers and that sort of thing. Yeah. But no, they were always nice, but they kind of zoomed out of that scene, and the Ramones were nice.
Yeah.
They were very funny. I mean, I think we played with them like maybe 4 times. Yeah. So
maybe it was just Television.
Yeah, no. No. I mean, the only New York bands we played with others like the Mumps who were fantastic and they were our friends. Yeah. But Television were kind of jerky.
Yeah.
But it's okay. That's like a lifetime ago, you know. I mean.
Yeah. I know. It just you know.
It would be impossible to live in many parts of the country without them. For business, or for travel, for recreation, or vacation.
The retina is the most important and complex structure in the eyeball. Magnified many hundred times, the retina is seen to consist of this complicated arrangement of rods and cones, which convert light waves into nerve impulses in some manner which even science of today cannot fully explain.
Or the left lets you enjoy the picture you want, the way you want to see it.
It just happens. I kind of had not the same sort of experience. We did a radio thing in New York. This is early 80s, and Tom Verlaine, it wasn't the whole band, it was just Tom, and, you know, they were late, and it was just kind of like a pain in the ass, and it was also in the morning, which is difficult to just go somewhere, and there were live shows, or live performances. They weren't full-fledged shows, and we just got that same sort of vibe. But we were in New York, and we loved New York, and we loved everybody that we had met there, so, but I don't know, something about him.
Yeah, I could say at least in the quick, for everybody we played with, either headlining or people that supported us or we supported, generally it was, there weren't a lot of issues. I mean, we weren't, we just wanted to play and wanted other people to play, and it wasn't really an issue. And the same thing, we supported bands that were,
Sure.
playing with the Ramones. First of all, I mean, you're playing with somebody like the Ramones. It's like, it doesn't matter how good you are. They're the Ramones. It could be your best of best gigs. They're the Ramones.
Yeah.
So you have to just, there's no ego involved. You're like,
Yeah.
this is brilliance on a level I don't even know.
Yeah.
So things like that, you just kind of accept.
You just
know?
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Play your gig.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
there's no ego. I'm not big on ego. I mean, to me, it was just like, this is great.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and, you
Right,
know.
I mean, yeah, as a musician, I would be like, oh, fuck, this is fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
We can do this. And,
Yeah, definitely.
You know, now, were you guys, were you approached many big labels or intermediate labels?
Our
or-
whole thing happened way too. I hate to use the word quick, but it actually is. The
You might have
plan
been
works.
a little ahead.
I mean, when Kim got involved with us, we needed him to pay for a keyboard for Billy Bizot, who had been our high school friend, who was I think a year older, and he was like this. He in high school when he was 16, 17, he was making these 4-track masterpieces that were like way ahead of anybody we knew. He was writing these great songs that Steve and I will still talk about, and but he didn't have a keyboard. So Kim got involved. We had Danny. We were self-contained. Kim started to do his hustle. You know, we didn't very shortly after that. We started to play. I think Fast Freddy got us a gig at Mary Rat's house, a party. Might have been our first gig. We played a hair salon at Paul McGregor's on La Cienega, which was really filed under there is no scene because you're just in a room and people are there for that reason.
Yeah.
But he did, I don't know who said no, but we did do a really horrible audition for Chrysalis Records with Chris Wright and Terry Ellis, the two British owners. It was at night. We had the shopping cart and the chair, and they were probably reading Financial Times. And Fally went all out. He was like, brought champagne and caviar, and we were doing our thing. And I swear, in my mind, they're in the back going, "Dear Lord, when is this over?" And they had no interest. And then a year later, they kind of got into that whole, they decided it was new wave.
Right.
And so Kim went back to Denny Rosenkrantz, who had signed the Runaways at Mercury Records. So it was kind of like almost, I don't know. I think money exchanged hands. What am I to say? We did a demo for Mercury. That studio's still there. I live 5 blocks from it. I see it every day of my life. It's really weird that we would have recorded our album there, but Kim had a falling out with the engineer. But the Runaways recorded their first album there. So we do our demo. We avoid certain songs because we know they won't go over well. Like we don't do Master Race. Hi, I'm a Jew, but Denny's a Jew and you're not doing it. And we did, Ian wrote a song called Blackout, which was about a gay Boy Scout leader. We didn't even do those in our demo. Right. So we did the demo, and that was probably like in April. And in June, we're in Beach Boys Brothers Studios for like a month. I'm using, except for my snare and cymbals, I'm using Dennis Wilson's kit. And he's coming in at 3 a.m. because we have a lockdown, working on Pacific Ocean Blue. In fact, we run into him one day and he's like, "Hey, dude, I got to come in like in the middle of the night to record." It's like, yeah, but we're putting money in your pocket. But that was cool. I mean, so we, and we worked with Earl Mankey, who we loved. And he was just kind of like your hip older brother. He hadn't been on a Sparks that long. He didn't really look any different. And we could use anything in the studio except Brian Wilson's Mellotron. We couldn't even touch it. But I have to admit, I did touch it. And there were all crazy things. Like one day we walked in the control room and like every version of Good Vibrations is sitting in front of us. I'm just like, wow, this is a little too much to be looking at. But Brian's manager or somebody wanted them out for some reason. So for one day they sat on the floor and that was like way too weird. So I mean, literally like we're talking in a 7-month span, we went from not being a 5-piece to doing the demo to recording it, brother. And by September, having the record out, which I've said this many times. If we recorded this record a week later, we probably would have been a different band, because it was just, it was that day, that time, that hour, who we were, and for it happening at such a fast pace, it was hard because I don't think nobody was getting signed in LA.
That's
So
true.
it was very, very weird for us to get signed because I've said this a million times. My knowledge, when I went into Danny Rosenkrantz at Mercury, head of A&R on the West Coast, and I said, my big questions were not touring, tour support, marketing, radio. I said, can we have a non-LP B-side? Because I'm a record collector. He says no. I say, can we have a picture sleeve? He says no. That is like my 101 of like, that is what you go for when you're a band.
Once you're there, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything
right.
about, we find out after the fact we had tour support and we didn't even use it. So,
Wow.
yay.
Yeah. And tour support. I mean, did you tour?
We didn't. No, we just went to San Francisco, and we were so stupid because bands like the Mumps, they came from New York. They stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can't say our world would have been any different, but if we had, our San Francisco trip was amazing. It really was an eye opener because the response was much bigger than we thought.
Yeah.
But if we had gone to Illinois and played like Champaign and Chicago and gone to New York and Boston and Philly, there might have been a different story to tell. But the fact that we were so lame, that goes for all five of us. You're all guilty. That really it's sad in the aftermath.
Well, it is.
Looking back. Because, I mean, there's a lot of bands they tour and they break up in, Toledo. But we could have done it. We just didn't do it. And Fowley was more like, there was good things about Kim, plenty of bad things, but he was sort of like, I have a child, I've delivered it, you raise it.
Okay.
And that was sort of his response to us. He didn't really like what we were after the fact. Yeah. So he was sort of, he wanted us to be arena rock. That's what he put it. But we weren't arena rock. Yeah, we had Marshalls and Steve played through an SG and he was damn loud. And we were loud for who we were, but we were going to be on a bill with Aerosmith and win, So, it was just sort of like we were who we were at that very moment. And
it's just so hard to know what to do when you're in that moment and you're in that place. There's all these choices, and if I step over here, maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. If I step over here, same thing. It's just so hard to know. And then, like you said, years later, I've looked back on so many things, not that just me, but all kinds of things that I witnessed. And I'm like, oh, God, I wish they would just done this, or I wish this would have happened, or I wish somebody would have been in the room that could have.
Well, I'm okay with the airplane going down and being in it. I mean, I can accept it because in a way it's sort of like, it's hey, I can wear that badge.
Yeah.
But, look, I can't go to sleep at night, roll around and cry.
Yeah.
But I mean, certainly I learned a few things as I went into other bands, and I'm not saying any of it ever turned into like the spiral of wisdom, but
well, it's quite an education.
It is an education, and you do what you do learn from it is things that you can and can't do, and some of them it's like, what's your problem? I mean, you should do it, but I mean, a lot of it, if we had a manager after Kim. But, and it's funny, Steve and I did an interview once, and I said, yeah, he managed Jimmy Durante. That was my comment. And Steve said, no, he had a giant painting behind him on the wall of Jimmy Durante. He managed Loggins and Messina, which is a true story. There was a painting, but in my mind, it was Jimmy Durante. Yeah, right. But I don't think he did anything for us. He was a bigger manager, but maybe people came out and saw us and said they suck. Yeah. But I mean, we meet Brian May of Queen. He comes backstage at the Whiskey with Roger Taylor. Roger's looking for girls, but Brian comes back and this is amazing. Oh, wow. He gives us his card. Is there anything I can do? Well, I could think of 5 things he could do. What about putting us on the tour with you? We take the card and do nothing. We don't call him. Okay. We don't even on the spot say, what about maybe going on the road with you? Or could you recommend a manager? Yeah. We take a card. from everything I've ever seen, he seems to be like the most charming man you could possibly be. And he was. He had no reason to be in our dressing room.
Yeah.
But he came back because I think he saw that we understood who Queen were, and he saw that Steve was a pretty damn good guitar player. And that was just one of those things. That card probably was in a garbage can by,
I know, right?
Dawn. And it was like, stuff
that
like
might keep me up at night.
No, I mean, I think about it and I'm like, I remember we said we're doing demos for Elektra. And his response was, they're going to sign a band out of Boston called The Cars. And I remember that.
Yeah.
And you know what? He was right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was the thing. We got hooked up with David Campbell, who was great, who sent us a telegram, of all things, and wanted to produce us. And we got very excited because Elektra had a demo studio called the Annex in the Valley, which was like a ranch-style house and a studio attached to it. And so they just let people go in and cut.
Yeah.
We did a lot. That was where we cut our song Pretty Please. And David was great, but he wasn't a manager. But he was on our side big time. And he was big at the time. He's still big. I mean, and he's got a son that's big. His son is this kid named Beck. He got us in the studio as much as he could. But it was like we were in quicksand. I mean, it was great, and we really took advantage of the studio. We stopped recording in the studio and started using the house.
Yeah.
We were being very adventurous. Well, let's put an amp in the hallway, but it just wasn't leading anywhere. And we sort of break up the summer before the whole new wave. Summer '78. We break up right before that.
So it was that early, like 78.
70, yeah, we break. We form in. Well, I mean, Danny joins in end of '75, and we break up in '78. So it's very tragic.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that must have been a little tough.
It was tough. I mean, for me personally, I grabbed a bunch of money. I didn't rob anybody. I just want to make that clear. Oh. And I went to England. It was sort of like the love of my life had left me, and it happened so abruptly and so weird. Like, we didn't sit in a room and discuss our future. It just kind of happened. And I went to England, and I did a session, which was crazy. The same at Wessex, where the Pistols and Clash recorded.
Yeah.
And I only heard it last year for the first time. It was with Alex Ferguson, who was in ATV, and we did this weird. We cut a track, and they paid me like a session drummer, and they fed me and got me a kit, everything.
Nice.
And there were a couple different things which almost happened. Ian North, who was in Milk and Cookies, had a band that were on Jet. And I got another telegram when I got home because he wanted me to be the drummer in his band. And Don Arden, the very well-known Don Arden, kind of known for a lot of things, but Criminal is one of them. And he wrote... Ian wrote me and said that he doesn't want to pay for another visa. But again, I didn't know what a visa cost. Maybe I could have got my mom and dad to front the money.
Yeah.
But it's okay. That's just how things roll, you know? But it was an amazing summer, and I saw so many great bands.
Oh, God. I was going to say.
Summer of 78.
Yeah,
it was insane.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, no, I saw a lot.
Right there in the thick of that whole
Yeah, no, it was...
explosion.
There was a lot of great things, just fun things that, know... And I knew enough, like, where to go and who to see.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
There's nothing like a car. $50 million Americans can't be wrong. But millions of cars take up a lot of room.
Between the lens and the cornea is the aqueous humor, consisting mostly of water and a little salt. This larger space within the eye is filled with the vitreous humor or body, consisting chiefly of water with some salt and albumin.
Right at your fingertips. Adjust brightness. Lighter. Darker. Like all the controls on this remote unit, the volume is fully variable.
So you spent that time there. I mean, what was it? What made you decide to come back? I mean, wasn't there a reasonable kind of feeling like you
Well-
could have actually just stayed there and
Well, I mean, Alex and he had a squat, and I got a kit, real cheap kit, and we were doing like just cassette demos, and but he didn't seem to have anything like, oh, we could go get a record deal.
Yeah.
So, and then Ian was like, I've got stuff lined up, an album to do, a tour to do, blah, 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 blah. But again, I'm an American.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
met with a few musicians that were like forming bands or needed a drummer. But in a way, me being American was a little problematic because it's like, are you going to love us and leave us kind of thing.
yeah, yeah,
So I stayed as long as my money, lasted, and after buying records and things like that, and going out almost every night to see a band play, and so I mean, I don't look at it and think, oh, my destiny would have changed, because standing back, I can go, well, I see what Ian North did. He did make a record or two. It wasn't like he turned into Mop the Hoople or something. So there was nothing I was involved with that I say, oh, well, now looking
Okay,
at
right,
it,
right.
I could have been the Pete Best of the blah blahs.
Yeah.
No, I think I just dipped my toe in the water and loved being there that summer, because there was just so many things I cared about, and it made some of that heartbreak go away. Not all of it, because
Yeah.
you're in a band that you care about. It's hard to kind of just say,
It's
I
a
don't
nice
care
way
anymore.
to kind of, a little bit of therapy there, though, to be able to go to England in such an explosive time and
Yeah.
see that stuff. But yeah, it doesn't take away the fact.
No, I mean, it just depends on how you're built, I guess.
yeah.
I mean, I'm fragile, but I guess also at that point, I had a pretty adventurous spirit and thought like, I can go somewhere with this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I mean, so the money was a thing, but at some point you probably just felt like, well, if I'm going to keep doing this, I got to go back to.
Well, yeah, it was that combination. At that point, I didn't know that the Ian thing or the Alex thing would necessarily completely go kaput.
Yeah.
And money was a factor.
Yeah.
So I knew that if I just went home, and I'm staying in a horrible place. I mean, it was like, the shower was down the hall kind of thing, and you had to use coins. Very, very sexy for people that don't know that part of England. So yeah, it was just like, money's running out. There's nothing. I'm not signed with a band going in to make a record.
Yeah.
So it just hit that wall, and I needed to go back
Yeah.
home.
Just
and,
go back home.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you came back home. What is it? Still 78?
Yeah. Oh yeah. End of September, maybe beginning
Well,
of
it was.
October.
I mean, there was an explosion here too.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. I missed bands that came over and toured during that summer. In fact, when I went over, I ran into the Dickies, who were playing, and Charlotte Caffey had been dating Leonard.
Right.
She had yet to join the Go-Go's.
Uh-huh.
She went
Yeah.
back and joined the Go-Go's. So she was like Charlotte I knew from the Eyes.
Yeah.
And so we hung out with them a bit. And I mean, I really knew them. I didn't know Charlotte well, but I mean, I knew the Dickies really well. We'd gone to school together. So we had a couple days of just complete fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I came back, and yeah, the LA scene was completely different.
Yeah.
There were so many Skinny Ties, and there was lots of punk bands, and all that was going on, and there was good stuff going on, and also good stuff was coming to LA, and there was places, many more places for people to play.
Yeah.
It kind of changed, so
Right.
it was before anything closed, so you still had the Whiskey and the Starwood, so
I had both. Yeah.
and then you had the punk clubs, and then you had the bigger venues that places
remember
like
a
the
lot
Santa Monica Civic, which would
Yeah,
still hold
yeah.
concerts,
Oh yeah. God.
which still stands
Used
there
to
and is
love
not
going
used for.
there. I know it's so. It just boggles my mind. It's like,
I saw
it
so
was
many-
Such a great venue.
I feel lucky. I played there a couple times.
Yeah.
but I mean, seeing Bowie and the Spiders from
Yeah,
Mars there. I mean,
right,
come
I know.
on,
And
Mott
it's
the
not being
Hoople,
used.
Queen. I mean, I saw the Who there.
Yeah.
As a kid, I saw the Who there. I mean, come on, and that building just stands there, dormant.
I know, and I loved it. I saw.
Look it up, kids.
I know. I saw Iggy there, and whatever it was, 78, I guess, when he was.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
77 maybe. But lots of bands that I'd seen there, And I'm just like, man, this is the perfect venue. It's got size. Sound is incredibly
Yeah,
good.
no, it was great.
You know, and I would always kind of stand middle or back just so I could sort of take it all in, except for a couple of shows you had to be up front. But
It's when you wanted to get your ass kicked.
Yeah, I know. Or get your toes smashed or somebody biting me on the arm. Anyway.
Right.
But, yeah, and you
Get
look
rabies.
around and nobody's like, But yeah, what an incredible place. And I can't believe somebody... have all the people with money just lost their mind? I mean, had not one of them been tempted to go, Santa Monica Civic?
I
wow,
think...
Why don't I put some money into that? Make that
I
like
think the city's prevented it, but
Maybe.
they haven't torn it down. And I don't know if it's considered a landmark. I mean, Academy Awards was held there at one point.
Yeah.
I mean,
It might, I mean, it kind of probably should be, but...
yeah, no, it's great. It's great. And anybody, the period when people played there all the time, it was a great venue to go see
Yes.
bands. And
Yeah.
I mean, when originally it was seated, and then it just became a stand up. But it was great, and it's I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I could lament that place being.
Yeah. It's a head shaker, because you just like why it could still be working, and bands that need that kind of mid-level venue and exposure. It's just so perfect, Go to a club,
Right.
pack it, and then okay, it's not the Forum or something yet, but the Civic was perfect for that.
Well, I
Just put 'em
think
in
what's happened, that this certainly isn't the reason it's not open, but all the Los Angeles, theaters from the 30s that are now open, like the Ace being taken over
Right.
and called the United Artists, or any of those, Belasco, they're sort of like a smaller version of that.
Sure.
They're like 1,500
right,
seaters,
right.
But yeah, and those are. I mean, it's one of the things that does make me happy about Los Angeles, that you do have these venues that, that you can go see bands play in that are not, too big.
Yes. It's just so many, and a lot of bands, it's great for them, even if they're relatively young and I don't mean young in age, but just a new band. They played a few clubs. It's great exposure and quite a lot to learn by playing suddenly in front of 800 people, instead of 200. Bigger stage, bigger sound. You just learn so much as a band, as a musician.
No, well, also all of a sudden you're dealing with a better situation sound wise.
Yeah.
And
yes.
I've never played with monitors, that sort of thing. Especially as us as drummers,
Right, I know.
what
Monitors?
you could hear yourself. That's like you're like blown away by the
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't believe it. I
I
can
had
hear
very,
myself.
very spotty success with monitors. Occasionally I could hear the lead singer. But, we're behind the band.
Right.
So
no,
we're-
I mean, I had personal things I wanted to hear,
Yeah.
in my monitor whenever I had a monitor, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look back on bands prior to us playing. I mean, bands were just going out there and it's like, good luck, You're playing out of a stereo speaker
sorta hear
to
it.
like a lot of people and nobody can hear anything, and
Yeah.
somehow they're making it work.
Somehow they're making it work.
Yeah.
And everybody's either half drunk or completely drunk, and so they don't care anyway. So
Or they're just enthusiastic and they
as long as you and I supply some sort of beat and the bass player,
yeah, well, no,
they're fine. They're good.
Yeah, I think no, it's funny. I mean, monitors. I actually recall having a monitor more than not, except for maybe some of the lower of the lowest. But no, that was important.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. But so 79 comes along.
Yes, it
and
did.
then- and what are you thinking?
What am I?
What do you want to do
Well,
leading up to the stuff that you did?
Well, I mean, I never had. My ambition was never like I had a big game plan. I mean, I drove up to junior college right when I got out of high school, and in the Valley, and I got out, walked across the street, I saw the admission line. This is the truth. Got back in my car and drove home. I mean, it was like I had no real interest
Yeah.
I knew I played drums. I didn't even know what that meant. It wasn't like, is that getting me a non-LP B-side? I didn't know what it meant. And my parents weren't like, you have to go to college.
Yeah.
So it was like, Steve and I formed a band called the Falcons that, had some good things about it. But, it was sort of probably the best things were we played with some good bands. Like the Plimsolls loved us. So we got a lot of gigs with the Plimsolls, who in LA, and they're a mysterious band. They reach the LA County line and nobody cares about them. Yeah. But in LA, they could play 4 nights packed and people were screaming like it's Beatlemania. But it was sort of, it was kind of a waste of time. It was like being in a band with Steve was great. He's wrote some great songs. At the same time, we somehow got connected that the Weirdos needed a rhythm section. Right. So they were going to make the album Who, What, When, Where, Why. And I suggested Billy and I could do it. And I suggested Earl Mackey could produce it. And we rehearsed in my parents' garage and made the record, which I love. Yeah. I love the record. I loved playing with them. And then comes into me as a person and Billy at the time. Yeah. We rehearsed with the Weirdos once or twice downtown. And what are we going to do? Can we be in 2 bands? And I'm this person like, I'm in a band. I'm not in 2 bands. I'm not in 4 bands. I don't play in a supper club on Sundays. I'm in a band. And instead of making the move like, we should be in the Weirdos, because this record's great. John Denny's, an amazing front man. This is all happening. We stayed where we were, which was just like the Titanic. So, bad choice and much funner being in the Weirdos. Falcons was good for, meeting girls because we dressed in suits and, I was young and you could go out and you could be charming and it sort of worked at the time. And then, I got booted basically. But, Billy said I'm leaving and then I got booted and it was like, we both knew like we made the wrong move and we're still in this stupid band. And, so we left and when was that? So then...
we're getting into kind of...
We're in the 80s. We're in the 80s, everybody.
Paisley Underground.
Well, not prior to that, actually. So then I joined a band that was 3 of the ex-Flyboys, and they needed a drummer. Nice. And they made an album. Frontier was going to make an album with them, but she wanted to do it where we'll make this album, create a buzz. We won't play any live gigs, but then we'll get the buzz and we'll go out and play.
Sure.
So we did this reverse, philosophy. We weren't this hard-working touring band. And they were very like-minded. And I was sort of playing in it was great because I got to play like Budgie and Susie and the Banshees. Very free, got to do a lot of toms and things I normally didn't do. But, and we played the Whiskey and sold it out. And it was sort of like, for a minute, like, whoa, this is kind of like, are they magazine? Yeah. Are they kind of like a male Banshees? And then, I don't know, we get this ridiculous setup where we're going to go on the road with a motorhome and play some gigs because we hired somebody. And literally the motorhome hits the California desert and the lights inside go out. And it's just a nightmare. It was a horrible, horrible tour. And very few gigs. And we got to like New Jersey. And our per diem was like $5 a day. And we couldn't even, I had no money. Yeah. And we couldn't even go into the city. Yeah. So we were just in New Jersey. And there was a pizza place. So I'd go and get a Diet Coke and 2 slices. And then late in the day, I'd go and get a Coke and 2 slices. That went on for 2 days. And then we just said, it was going to be a week till another gig, and we were all like, no. So we loaded up the van and moved to Beverly. No, we loaded up the motorhome, went to a market, and just said, we got to get home as fast as we can.
Yeah, sure.
And all I recall was, I think it was Alabama, somewhere in the South, like 7 in the morning. We're going 80, and it's like going, and I have a tab, and a peanut butter banana sandwich, and I'm driving.
Yeah.
No one pulls us over. On the way, though, like we stopped like in Texas, and our guitar player Thames had like white George Washington type hair.
Yeah.
Really did not go over great. They really wanted to like string us up somewhere. So we got to the California border, and I called my parents. I had a penny, literally. Will you take the call? And they were like, yeah, because my parents were great. So I went home, and it was like a day later I was out of the. No, I take that back. We had a gig on June 4th, 1982, but I should go back a little bit. Right before I left on tour, I got invited. I heard Salvation Army. I heard their single, and this is amazing. It sounds like Peter Shelley fronting a psychedelic rock band. Yeah. And Frontiers signed them, and I got to go to the studio. I didn't know them at all. I went in, and I met them, and they were really young kids. And in comparison, I might as well have been like 80.
Yeah, I know.
And they were recording, and then at one point, Tom Wilson, who had produced Choir Invisible, hated them so much. He didn't even put a credit on the record. He said to me about the drummer, he said, you're going to have to go in there and play. And I'm like, there's no way. I'm not going in and taking this away from anybody. That's not my life. No. Yeah. But I remembered the song. So then I came back. We played on June 4th, 1982. I remember this. Number one, it's the night I met my wife. Yeah. Number two, it is the last gig I played with Choir Invisible and Dream Syndicate open. So this new thing's happening. Yeah. And they were really noisy and squealy and feedbacky, and they were really, really cool. And like the next day, I was out of the band. Yeah. I mean, they were very much into a lot of makeup, which was okay, and really into Brideshead Revisited, which I liked, but they were very picky about how you had to be. And it was like, this is going nowhere. I don't care. Kick me out. Yeah. And like 2 weeks later, I get a call. I'm warned that I'm getting a call, and it's Michael and Lewis from Salvation Army. And they're like, they were at a party, and they're like, hey, would you like to like play with us? We could meet up and maybe play. And I'm like, they're like my favorite band, but they don't know it. And I'm like, yeah. So they come to my house, and we play, and I kind of know some of their songs, so it's not even that hard. Yeah. And I'm like a professional musician, so it's like they're like little kids. So so Michael says, yeah. So it was like late June, and it was like and they said, we have a gig July 23rd, which was 3 weeks away. Yeah. I'm like, okay, but I'm thinking, why does this matter to me? And I figured out, well, this isn't even a rehearsal. I mean, this isn't an audition. I'm in the band.
You're in the band, yeah.
I'm in the band like the moment they showed up. And Michael said in October, we want to record an EP, which he was true to. And we started playing at Salvation Army like 3 weeks later, which was nuts.
Yeah.
I'm really, really sped up. But as soon as I joined the band, they're like, you have more experience than us, so you're going to take care of our business. Okay. So I said, more money for that gig. That Club 88 gig sucks. Get rid of it. So I started doing it, but I didn't really want to do it because I knew that, and it happened pretty fast, was that I would be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I remember we had a little bit of money. We did a trip to San Francisco where we took a cargo van and drove back the same night. And I remember, I think Lewis like, well, I want to buy, I don't know, Big Muff or something. It was like $80. I was like, no. He's like, what do you mean? We have the money. I said, yeah, but that's all the money we have.
Yeah.
So at the start, it was like they made me handle business functions, which really, I want to know about it. I'm very big on knowing what is going on, but I don't want to be the guy.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where we played the Roxy, maybe with the Bangs, and this lawyer's talking to me backstage, but I'm on the stairway of the Roxy, and a roadie comes up and said, you have to check your drums. And it is the moment where light bulb goes off. Can't do both. Yeah. Like what the lawyer is saying to me, but drums don't work. I can't even get on stage.
Yeah.
So I knew that had to come to an end. So thankfully, I was able to.
That's it. Yeah. That's two completely separate gigs.
Yeah.
You're trying
and I stayed involved in the knowledge, but I found us a manager, and that was what we needed.
Let them be the bad guy.
Yeah, I don't.
You be
want
the finance guy.
I don't want to. I don't want any of that. I just want to know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be. I'll stick my nose in all of it, but I don't want it to be. I'm the bad.
Well,
guy.
you need to know, right? I mean, you want to know.
Well, I wanted to
what's
know more
going on.
than the band, the rest of the band did, because their knowledge was minuscule. So
Yeah.
they were kind of like me, even before the Quick. They had a little bit of knowledge. There were certain things they cared about. Everybody's got their little,
Yeah.
can I get my Big Muff, or can I, what are we doing next Saturday, And I sort of came from that Quick ethic, which is you rehearse all the time, and which is what we did in the Quick. So, we were doing that, in Salvation Army, and then we became the 3 o'clock rather shortly because Salvation Army didn't like the name being used, so it had to be changed.
I know, isn't that weird? I mean, you can't copyright a name, but yet they didn't
Well,
like that.
I it's very funny how Red Cross, they just added D's, and they still fight to this day over like our name's stupid, know.
Yeah.
But we had like 2 weeks, and then one day Michael just came in rehearsal and said, "We're going to be the 3 o'clock," and it was just like what, it was just like. I also knew unless your name was extremely lame, nobody cares.
Yeah, no, ultimately they really don't.
No, I mean, well, if you have the dumbest name and you can't get off the ground, the name might be part of the anchor that's holding you down. But like Gun Club's a great name. That's a really good band name. I mean,
But Vanilla Fudge, not a good.
Traffic congestion gets worse and worse. Because more and more while we go about our daily work. Take this modern office building. If all the people in the building drove their cars to work, the parking area required would be greater than the floor space of the building itself.
The vitreous humor is really a highly transparent jelly and plays a very important part in the act of visual adjustment.
Select any volume you want. Should the telephone ring or guests arrive, and you want to lower the sound for conversation, turn the volume down to your taste.
not a good name, but I get, the Beatles made sense right at that moment.
Yeah, at that
we're
moment,
a beat
right.
group, and we're making, we're going to do like we're going to be like the Crickets, but we're going to be the Beatles,
Yeah,
but it's EAT. I get it, but later on, did it really matter? No, they're huge.
It doesn't, yeah. No,
You can criticize band names all day. I mean,
I know.
but it doesn't matter.
And I have.
And I will join you.
Yeah. It's kind
We
of
could
fun
do a whole
to do.
series on that.
Right. Sucky band names. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, it really matters if someone's sort of mediocre and
Yeah.
their band name sucks.
Yeah.
Then you kind of think even less of them.
Yeah, you need to have a talk with yourself.
Yeah, it's like
Band meeting.
you're not very good. Your songs aren't very good, and you have a horrible name.
Yeah.
And I know for some people the name, they'll have some weird name, but it'll mean something to them, but it doesn't. The outside world sort of like
Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't connect.
no.
Even if they think it does, or they're like, no, it works, man. But sometimes it doesn't. Crisis Actor, I think is a great name. I love that name.
Yeah, no, that's
Crisis
good.
Actor. I like that name.
Yeah, no, I mean,
know.
and in reality, I don't really care about names.
Yeah,
being
I don't
honest,
either.
because
I don't either.
I mean, the reality is the name you use the name as like yourself. You're just like, my name's Danny Benair, but you go into it for a year and everybody doesn't care that you're the Danny Benair Sextet
At
or
a
whatever.
certain point,
Then it just becomes like you're a band and that's your name, and people are going to see you and they don't care what you're
Right.
called. But if you're really awful and you have a bad name, then it's kind of like they suck on so many levels, 'cause
We're
then
just not going to go see them.
right. Or like, when are they going to be over? I want to be in the lobby, kind of
It's
thing.
painful at times. So 3 o'clock though, and
That starts to it started to happen rather fast. I've used that word way too much. Tried to stay away from quick, went to fast.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there was a scene that was happening more than I was aware of, and obviously, pretty early on, Michael Corsia from the band and myself went and did an interview for the LA Weekly, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was a big deal, and It was at the Rock and Roll Denny's, which doesn't exist anymore. Was on Sunset, and somewhere in the middle of the interview, Michael was very colorful at the time about his lyrics and expressions, and he said, "Yeah, it's kind of like the Paisley Underground." And I didn't even
right.
think about it. It was like
Right.
we're just zooming through it, having a soda, whatever we're doing, and then like a month or so later, started seeing it getting used. Somebody saw it and thought, "We've got a tag for it."
There it is. Yeah.
You know, it's not Mersey Beat. We're this.
There's your category.
And so really, it's become this in a way. It's great because it did define the 4 to 6 to 7 bands that were at Thanksgiving. Because I try to explain to people, it's not a sound, it's a scene. And really it was a small scene. And really it was these bands who played on each other's records that played a lot of gigs together.
Yeah.
And that's really what it was. I mean, we had members of Rain Parade on our record. We had the Bangles get up and sing with us. We had things like that. But then you find out, some band across the country is like, well, I was part of the Paisley Underground. But they're missing the point. You're not. You might be part of the, whatever, Steaming Shorts, Arkansas, psychedelic scene. But you're not part of this.
Yeah.
Not that it really matters, but people want to be part of something they're not.
Right.
And I really try to use it as like, it's kind of like a nice little Thanksgiving meal. I know the bands.
It did get a lot of traction beyond. It punched above its weight.
Yeah,
so.
and the thing was, we would go across the country, and our manager John Silva would always find like-minded bands, like in Minneapolis, we played with 27th Various, who were great, and they were really psychedelic and just wonderful, and they were great people, and they had amazing demo tape. And so you'd play with a lot of you'd find the like-minded people, and you would play, even if they weren't so-called psychedelic. I mean, in Boston, we played with that band Salem 66 a lot, and we really got along great with them.
Yeah.
They would play a pile of dates with us. We'd go up the, Eastern Seaboard. But it wasn't like I would, it's like I wouldn't want to be called I'm part of the Chicago blues scene. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But so when we started it really started to erupt. I remember early on we went to play in Orange County at some venue that I don't even think was a venue, and we showed up and there were like 800 mods.
Wow.
And it was like,
how about that?
It was so weird to us because why are 800 mods with scooters here? But it really was that.
Yeah.
They didn't even have a proper mic stand. They had to find one. Yeah. It was just like they were paying us, I don't know, enough money to go do it.
Yeah.
And so, the first few years were like that way. And and that was great because, we toured a lot early on, and our manager was great because he knew radio. So the way social media is now, you'd go to a city, you'd meet every city we did the radio. Didn't matter if they hated us, we'd go. We'd even pull the record out, and if they hated us, we would read the comments.
Yeah.
But if you went to cities and they liked you, that program director the next week would be calling the next program director. So you'd be getting a buzz from that.
Exactly.
So we made 2 records on Frontier, and our album 16 Tambourines was the first independent label to go to number 1 on CMJ, which the College Music Journal at that point was like very big deal.
Yeah.
Now I don't even know if it exists.
Yeah.
But at that time,
No, that was power.
we're above Thompson Twins. That's a big deal. So everywhere you went, the crowds were getting bigger, in certain cities for sure. And then, then everybody started having their bidding wars.
Yeah.
All the main bands all started getting label attention.
Right.
Because that's what showbiz does.
And then I know, and then it just kind of. It just does, it's the same cycle over and over and over. Those things, they happen, they kind of get big, and then they're splintering, and then... and then here we are.
Yeah, no, long time ago, but...
I know, right.
Yeah, no, I mean...
But I just think it was a great scene. I mean, I didn't get to experience it here because I was constantly gone. And, but, you try to keep tabs as much as you can. But like you said... radio is really important. That got to a lot of especially in all those college towns, you know, that
Yeah.
we'd always play, but that's it was just that whole post punk thing. It was just such that was a secondary or third or fourth explosion of, again, so many bands, so many trails and branches and
Yeah. I mean,
you
well,
know,
that's the thing. I mean, I remember like
connections.
in Chicago, we played with the Cramps, and again,
Yeah, all right.
you don't really want to be playing with the Cramps,
Yeah.
because the Cramps are just like they're the Cramps.
We often did.
You know, they're just not. That's
Yeah.
just not an easy band to be on a bill with.
I know.
I mean, I never felt weird about it. It's like the funny thing was, I remember we went to Nashville and we played with X, and we were both musing about like, this is so weird. We've never played an LA gig together,
Yeah.
but we're in Nashville playing
we
a
are.
gig, and that was very funny, and that was great. They were nice, and that went fine. And the Cramps were great, but it was just like, why are we on a bill with the Cramps? Really, you don't
Yeah.
want to be on a bill with the Cramps. You'd rather be watching Cramps. I
know.
probably saw them like, I don't know, a million times it seemed.
Yeah.
I mean, every time they were here, you know, I mean,
Of course. Yeah.
Lux
at every
Lux
show.
was
Yeah, you
Lux
couldn't
was
miss
like
that.
you can't beat Lux Interior. I mean,
So what was the? So how long did that last before you were finally like
out of show business.
Yeah. Well,
I-
but
well,
me
no, it
too.
wasn't out
I
of
did
show
the same
business.
thing.
No.
You know, it's the same path.
No, well, I mean, we did the shoot. We then got signed to IRS. We were being courted by Elektra and Island and Sire. But it just there was a point where IRS was made an offer, and we realized we were reaching that point where we really have to do another record now.
Yeah.
And we could sit around and see how long it'll take, like Island, to maybe say we really do love you. Even though in the meeting when we met the British A&R guy, who did go on to sign, Rain Parade and Long Riders,
yeah.
and the first words out of his mouth were, "What will it take to sign you boys?"
Yeah.
Well, he was a slow, and IRS was like, "We have an offer, we want to do it," and we were like, "We can't just bypass all this. This is a real offer. It's not like we're just sitting
Sure,
in
of
an
course.
office
No,
and
you have to take
you're
advantage.
pretty and
Yeah.
So we did that, and we did 2 records for IRS. The first one charted, and we toured with REM and played Radio City Music Hall, which is
Yeah.
more, it was very cool. I stood in the back and saw my little tiny drum set. And then after IRS, we got signed to Paisley Park, which was just weird.
Yeah.
I mean, Pink. I was about to say about my drum set being pink. Prince was a fan, and we knew that. He'd seen our video for our first IRS record, the video for Heads Revolving, where a woman drinks green liquid.
Yeah.
And he really liked it, and it got back to us through one of the Bangles. So when it came to not having a label deal, they somebody out to see us, and they went back and said they're good. So we were like, again, a weird band, because we were this self-contained band that, unfortunately, if we'd been on Paisley Park 2 years earlier, it'd probably have been a different world. Because for starters, right at that moment, Prince started having a lot of disagreements with Warner's.
Yeah.
And really, Warner's were our label.
Yeah.
We were just on our label, it said Paisley Park, but we got a horrible guy to produce our record that really had his own ideas way beyond. I mean, we had no idea. He was making a record for himself, really. So it was very frustrating, and it was really the death knell.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah.
And we made a record that really was not about us.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty easy at the end of that run to see that why you shouldn't be a band. And that was...
Well, and so it was kind of a mutual thing then for everybody, or did
Well,
you...
I mean, it would have been, yes. But I mean, we had some gig when John Silva always remembers the name of it. I don't know, it was somewhere in the middle of California. It was like, I don't know, the Cantaloupe, Dog Festival, some stupid name, but it was a lot of money. And I do remember that my wife, who was then my girlfriend, but she worked in retail, and I was in a stupid band. So I remember the money that we were going to get was substantial. And I remember the week that we were going to rehearse, I called Michael on a Monday, not going to rehearse. Tuesday, no, Wednesday. We get to Thursday, it's like, we got to rehearse.
Yeah.
And I said, is this it? And he was like, yeah. And he just bailed on the last gig.
Yeah, okay.
I just don't think he had it in him to just even go. The money didn't even mean something to him.
Right.
So that was weird. So, yeah, it came to an end rather
Abruptly.
abruptly. I mean,
Right.
we didn't have any, thing is, we didn't have any outstanding gigs other than that.
Yeah.
We didn't have a second album commitment. None of that mattered. And like I said, the relationship with Prince and Warner's and then Warner's and us, we were like, they dealt with us because they had to. They were all pleasant.
Yeah.
Nobody there was not nice. But it was ill-conceived and nobody saw it from the beginning. So that was the end of my real rock and roll days, I
Yeah.
would say.
Well, I mean, I had such a similar path. Mid-'80s, more or less. That was it. You know, sayonara. And it's okay. I mean, it just, you know, we got to do some amazing things, and that's why I wanted you to talk to you today, because that's just something.
Should we get a towel and start crying?
Well, I have some somewhere. Where are the cry towels?
Everybody gets a cry towel.
They're big washed. But no, I mean, it's not that. It's not about crying. It's just about, that's what we got to do. That's where it was. You know, every time you do something like this, it's a throw of the dice anyway. And I look back and I go, I'm just really happy that I was able to do whatever I did.
Yeah.
It was totally cool. But, you know, it was just kind of that sort of thing. I mean, it changes so rapidly, you know, 80s, mid-'80s, late 80s, and then by the early 90s.
Well, that was, I mean,
You know.
I did for a moment, because I'm just that sort of person. I thought, what would it take to form a band?
Yeah.
And I thought about this for a moment. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
It's like, okay,
I
so
know.
I'm gonna find people I want to be in a band with. I had no idea what I wanted to do.
I know.
And go into a garage for a while, and then go out and play, and then try to get a record deal. It's like,
Yeah, you don't want to
and
do
also, I was just the sort of person, and this is no knock on anybody else, but I just didn't want to go and just play to play. I didn't care about,
right.
you know, so I was away from it for a long time until we reformed the 3 o'clock
Yeah.
to play Coachella and play in Japan at Fuji, which was a surreal, whole
Right.
different, it was like a do-over.
It was a little weird, yeah.
I mean, John is a big manager, and he said, "Yeah, I think you're going to play Coachella." And then, like, I remember I called him on a Friday. I said, "Well, what about TV?" He goes, "Call me on Monday." And I call him on Monday. He doesn't. He kind of talks like that, but he's not mean. And he said, "I said, what? You told me to call you about TV? Yeah, a week from Wednesday, you're on Conan." And I'm like, "What?" So we're on Conan, which was crazy, and we had been on TV, but never like a live TV show.
Yeah.
And then we got the Fuji one, which was really great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much cooler than Coachella, because at Coachella, you know, every stupid kid's agent is really backstage.
Yeah.
But in Japan, it's like you're in this area where it's like you're here, that door's St. Vincent. Yoko Ono's right there. We're on the same stage. 5,000 people, every band. 5,000 people come into this tent. That's what it fits.
Yeah.
So then you walk out of that area, and there's an area for the artist to eat. Again, nobody, no Nepo babies, no hangers on. Then from there, we had a young guy that was with us that would guide us. Then you go out, and they took us to all the press. So then you're staying in an area where the press, you're from, you know, whatever, you know, this magazine. So they come over and interview. And then when you're done with that, they take you to another table. Yeah. So different.
Well, organized.
Very organized. And then we were able to go and watch like St. Vincent and Yoko Ono. And I'll never forget that I would never have thought in my life that I saw Yoko Ono and the Plastic Ono Band. The next concert I saw was Paul McCartney at Dodger Stadium. If you ever told me I'm going to see Yoko Ono and then Paul McCartney, I'm like, you're nuts. But that was great. We got to do things in a different manner and did some things that were very special. But it was, you know, we played like, I don't know, 6-8 gigs, and that was that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's a fantastic story, man. Thank you, Danny. We got to wrap it. Man, I loved
Thank
it.
you.
I loved hearing all that.
Well,
Because, like I
thanks.
said, I missed so much because I just couldn't be there and watch it. I'd read about it. People would tell me.
Yeah, no,
I'd
well,
share.
we're all somewhere, and we're not always,
So,
There's a lot of shows that I can say like, oh yeah, that happened. I wasn't in LA when that happened.
Well, I was repaying karma by playing with Jeffrey Lee Pierce.
I never really knew Jeffrey. That's a funny thing.
We'll talk about it. Thank you, Danny.
You're very welcome.
That was excellent. So good.